Hi, everybody. You are very welcome to our Leaving Cert English higher level session on composing, the composing section of paper one. First of all, just a very quick uh, apologies for the unavoidable kind of technical difficulties that we've been having with our YouTube channel today. But this entire session is going to be uploaded, so you're not missing out on anything. And again, our apologies for that. So let's go straight into what we're looking at, all right? What is the composing section? So look, it's an extended genre-specific writing task. So you might remember in around kind of the first couple of weeks of fifth year, your English teacher was probably talking to you about the 5 language genres, okay? And a reminder of what they are. So we have the language of narration, information, aesthetic, persuasion, and argument, okay? So those 5 language genres. And paper one is basically asking you to read, understand, speak about, talk about, and ultimately write in one or more of those genres. And you're being tested on your ability to demonstrate the different styles and the different conventions associated with each of those, and none more so than the composing section of paper one. Okay, so just where does it sit on the paper? So it's the second section, and it's the third question of paper one. Okay, and it's worth 100 marks. Now this year in particular, so why we're focusing on the composing section, specifically in this session, is because of the disruptions to with the pandemic, etc. There have been amendments, as I'm sure you are aware. So the composing section for the class of 2021 sitting higher level English, the composing section, it's going to be worth 37% of the overall grade that you can achieve in this subject. So again, the composing section, it's always been important, but none more so than this year. So what, you're 37, you're 4% off an overall pass in this subject, purely based on how well or how badly, hopefully how well, you will do in the composing section. So this is an important question. It is the largest amount of marks going for a single question. So across both exam papers, I should add, you will be given 7 options that will act as writing prompts, and you must respond to one of your choice. Okay. The composing section, it offers enough range to give you an opportunity to write really in whatever language genre you feel most comfortable with. All right. And just kind of some housekeeping, kind of the question everybody asks. So how long does it have to be? How many pages, etc. So no less than 5 pages. Okay. It's a 100-mark question. The examiner won't be warmed up to the idea of you only giving 2 pages or 3 pages. Okay. 4, again, absolute minimum 4. Try and get to 5. 5, I would say, is the sweet spot for a good short story in particular, for example. Definitely don't be going 6, 7 pages. You're really going to be waffling if you're doing that. Okay. And again, this year you have the luxury, because you only have to answer two things on paper one. So an A and a B, an A or a B, and you're composing. So you can spend over an hour and a half. So around 90 minutes on this section, but you can spend well over an hour on it. Okay. So what are the options? So today's session isn't going to go through each and every one of these, but we're going to look particularly at the 3 kind of bankers. Okay. I can promise you 100%, I'm very, very certain in saying this, for the last 20 years, there is going to be a short story option on the paper, at least one. There is going to be at least one option of a personal essay on the paper, and there is at least going to be one option of a speech on the paper. Okay, so there's 7 in total, and today, this session, as I said, it's going to look at short story, the personal essay, and speech writing. And why are we looking at those? Because they will all be options on the composing section. I promise you in saying that. So just for kind of to be a bit strategic about it here, you should know what your strengths are by now. Do you know what I mean? So you should know before going in to sit this paper in June, I am going to answer the short story. If I don't like the look of the short story, then my backup is going to be a personal essay. Okay, whatever it might be. I'm going to write the speech. And if I don't like the idea of the speech, I'm going to write the feature article. Okay, I'm going to write the discursive essay. If I don't like the look of the discursive essay, I'm going to write the short story. But now you have to get beyond the kind of hemming and hawing stage. What are you good at? Play to your strengths. Okay, obviously, okay. So it's an exam, ExamRevision.ie. It's an exam. You need to be able to have a strengths-based approach to it. Okay. Okie dokie then. So let's crack straight into the short story. So this question primarily requires you to write in the genre of narration. So remember, the language of narration. It's the language of storytelling. Okay, there will be at least one short story option on the paper. And when I say at least, more often than not, there is more than one option. Okay, there is more than one option. Your short story will be specific to what is being asked of you. Okay, so obviously with everything, your P mark, you remember we spoke about that before, I think, your purpose mark, your PCLM marking scheme. So you're going to have to respond directly to the question that's being asked of you. That's just a given. So your short story will be specific to what is being asked of you, but certain conventions are always expected. So I call this the SCPN formula, okay? Every short story, it doesn't matter what it's about, who it's written by, if you want to do well in them, etc., these are the 4 things you need to be looking at. Setting, character, plot, narrative writing. And we got a question in our YouTube before technology failed us. Any tips for improving your short story writing? And again, it's kind of, this is the best piece of advice I can actually probably give you for the short story writing. Every short story needs to have that clear sense of setting. Every short story needs to have a character or characters. Every short story needs to have a plot, and every short story needs to have that kind of narrative quality. And hopefully as we go along here at the SCPN, it'll become clearer to you and you will understand what we're talking about when we look at this. Okay, so setting, so the S in the formula. So setting may be specifically given to you in the question. All right, so you might be told, write a short story set in an unfamiliar place. So you might get that. All right, but keep in mind, what is setting? It is the time and it is the place in which the story is set. So is the setting 1920s New York? Is the setting modern day Dublin? Is the setting 1960s London? Wherever it might be. Okay. Be conscious of setting. Develop and convey a very clear sense of time and place. So it needs to be clear. All right. It will give your story that sense of depth as well. And it will help you in your writing. So again, the question we got there, it will help you in your writing. If you're able to kind of, even for yourself, you don't have to tell everything. We'll talk about that when we get to narrative writing. But you, even just for yourself, have that idea of, this is my story, this is the time in which I've set it in, and this is the location I've set it in. All right. Quick tip here though, use what you know. So avoid overcomplicated and unnecessary settings. So if you love, I don't know, The Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones, fantastic. Don't try and recreate that depth of fantasy or anything. So stick with settings that are realistic. So stick to real life settings, because otherwise you haven't got the luxury of writing a novel here. Do you know what I mean? It's a 5-6 page story max. So don't box yourself into a corner thinking that you need to write really kind of convoluted, sophisticated stuff. You don't, okay? Characters then. So the characters are the lifeblood of your story. There needs to be people present in it. So like there actually needs to be a character. And again, so first of all, keep an eye on what the question might tell you. You know what I mean? So keep an eye on that. But then otherwise, what are you going to be talking about? So pick characters that you are familiar with, pick characters that you know. So for example, if you like a particular Netflix series, what are the personality traits of characters that you like? What kind of characters are you drawn to? If you're reading a book, do you know what I mean? What kind of characters speak to you? So develop a sense of who your characters are. So kind of you're going back to junior cycle stuff here, but it's quite good still, okay? So what do the characters do? You know, what do they look like? So the main character must experience an event, okay? So the main character has to experience something. So it needs to be, we'll speak about this when we look at plot in a minute, but it's an event-driven thing as well, a short story, okay? So then they need to have that event, or they need to have that challenge, or they need to have that complication, the revelation, etc., of some kind or to some degree, okay? So keep your character count small, avoid over description. So subtle suggestion is always, always better. So don't start talking about kind of, like I said, with setting, don't bring 25 different characters into your short story. Keep your characters small, Also, don't be afraid to kind of be a little bit creative, because again, it's creative writing at the end of the day. So for example, you don't have to always name your characters. Just call them him, her, the boy, the man, the woman, whatever it might be. And again, keep your character count small. So we're talking 1, 2, I wouldn't go more than 3 characters. Okay, I really wouldn't, unless you're specifically told, which is unlikely, but unless you're specifically told, write a short story that involves 4 people, or do you know what I mean? But other than that, keep it small, make it easy for yourself. All right. And again, over description is to be avoided. So subtle suggestion is always, always, always the way to go. Okay. Plot then. You don't have a story if you don't have a plot. Now, again, think back to first year English here. Or even primary school English, every story has that idea, the beginning, the middle, the end. So the rule of 3. So keep it simple, keep it familiar. So let's go here. The clear introduction. So to establish the narrative direction, you need to set the story somewhere. Okay, so the intro is important, the opening paragraph, because you're giving that sense of mood, you're giving that sense of atmosphere, you're giving that suggestion of what the character's going through, you're giving that direction that the story is going to take. Okay, you're laying it all out. So think of when you watch a movie, the first kind of couple of minutes of the movie, you can't just dive straight in. You can't just do that. You have to be able to kind of set up and establish. Okay, so the intro paragraph is important because there's that establishment there. Okay, climax then. So there needs to be the event-driven elements in the middle. So again, in first year, you'd be told again, climax is the most dramatic point of the story, etc. So something needs to happen, okay, to move the story along. Now, be careful here, everybody, because when people think climax, they think drama. And again, it's not your fault, because it's what you've been told kind of in primary school, and what you've been told, like every story needs a plot twist and every story needs 10 different impressive things to happen on it. Okay, leaving cert story writing, it's not, especially at higher level, it's not asking you to reinvent the wheel. It's not asking you to have a nuclear disaster halfway through your story. Okay, so again, be believable. Don't go into the realm of the ridiculous with the climax. Okay, and I'll speak about that in a minute again when we get to the last bullet point on this slide. So the ending, whatever form it may take, there needs to be a clear stop and an end to it, okay? Again, think back to junior cycle English, the different types of novels and how they end, the different types of stories. So we have conclusions, we have resolutions, we have cliffhangers. It doesn't really matter. Whatever fits into the story and whatever will look sensible in response to the question that you're being asked specifically, but it needs to have that clear sense of ending. Okay, and I'm 99% over 99% sure that this year you shouldn't really have a problem in doing that, because like I said, you have got that real luxury in being able to really kind of sit with the story. You have time on your side this year. You're not racing against the clock as in previous years. So for plot as well, I should say though, go with the rule of 3. Okay, go with the rule of 3, but a logical sequence of events that would be easy to follow. All right, so there's 2 sides of the coin here. 1, don't be boring. Okay, don't just have a collection of events, have an actual story. But 2, on the other side of the coin then, don't be completely off the wall. Okay, logical sequencing. So again, you don't avoid things like I woke up and it was all a dream, avoid things like a zombie apocalypse, etc., because it doesn't really, it might sound or feel fantastic in your own head when you're writing it. I'm nearly sure it won't translate into what the examiner is reading. Okay, and that's the most important thing here. Okay, the only person you really have to impress with this writing is your examiner. Okay, So events that would be easy to follow. So the way I would always put this, imagine I'm correcting a short story or marking a short story belonging to you. Okay, I am sitting in my living room and I'm correcting this short story, and I read it once, and then I go into the kitchen and someone in the kitchen and they ask me to tell them about what I just read. I should be able to do that without hesitation. Okay, not going to be reading it twice, so you have one shot at this. So keep it simple, keep it straightforward, be impressive, but don't feel like you need to impress. Does that make sense? Okay. Narrative. Now, this is what keeps the kind of exam focus for us, okay? Because again, you are being tested in your ability to write in the language of narration, the genre of narrative writing. So the short story is an invitation to write creatively, okay? You are being tested on your ability to write in a genre of narration, so the telling of a story. You know what I mean? So start with a narrative point of view, okay? So how are you going to tell this story? So for example, I walked down the road. That's first person narration. I'm using the I pronoun, okay? Or she walked down the road, or Derek walked down the road, whatever. So what kind of narration are you going to be? First person, third person, whatever it might be. So have that narrative point of view. But again, from an examiner point of view, stick with that. If you're using the I pronoun, stick with it throughout. So avoid things like flashbacks, avoid things like too much dialogue or too much interior monologue. Okay, so stick with what you know. Whatever you establish, you need to see through to the end. Zone in on details that will be familiar to both you and the reader. Do you know what I mean? So use the world around you. So simple and descriptive details can be very effective. So start small and open out. Okay, so don't kind of throw everything in, build up to it. You know, that idea of like a crescendo. So you're building and you're building and you're building and you're building, and you'll get to it. Do you know what I mean? You don't need to leave everything out on the page in the first kind of couple of 10, 20 lines. All right, and I'm going to show you what I mean by that now, guys. Look, so it's all about narrative writing for leaving certificate, and again, particularly leaving certificate for higher level. It's all about that kind of show. Don't just tell. Okay, show me something. Don't just tell me something. That's like, the boy is sad. I don't learn anything. I don't gain anything. I don't see anything in my mind when I'm thinking of that. So for example, I've given you 2 paragraphs of the same story here. The first one, I am telling you something. The second one, I'm showing you something. So for example, Mary was from New York and she was sad because her boyfriend broke up with her. They were engaged to be married, but not now. She is very upset. All right, that's H4, right? That's about 60, 55, 60% kind of style writing. How can you bring that up to the uppers? Okay, how can you get 75 plus? How can you get the H2, the H1 in this? Okay, so same story, same thing, told in a better way though, told it with that narrative quality in mind. Okay, so I'll read it to you here. Look, you can see it. It was late. Mary sat on the edge of the steps of the Empire State Building. Its giant shadow made her feel even more cold and alone, if that was possible. Rain started to pour from the sky. She gripped the thin edges of her engagement ring, tears falling from her already swollen eyes. All right, so I haven't told you, I've shown you. Okay, and I've done it in a way without having to say New York, engaged, married, because I've shown you. It's obvious where she is. It's obvious how she's feeling. I've used an image. I've let the words do the talking, kind of. Do you know what I mean? So that's one example. The second example, again, same idea. So the first one I'm showing you, again, this is a H6 kind of standard. You get what? 50%, 45, 50%. A young girl is leaving behind an old life. It's raining and she's in a car with her mother. They had to leave for many reasons. They had very little money and are not sure where they are going. Okay. You don't really learn or gain any insight from that. The second one, I've put it into a narrative quality. I've shown you, I haven't just told you. So look, 2 wrinkled Aldi shopping bags had the last 16 years of my life hurriedly packed into them. They were now thrown on the back seat of my mother's car. along with 2 packets of digestive biscuits and 3 bottles of still water. As the car dipped its way through heavy rain, it began to gently shake from side to side, a mixture of the bad weather and the fact he would never really let my mother drive. I turn to the back to grab the biscuits again, and my mother snaps them from my hand. I flinch, a natural reaction given what we are running away from. She tells me to go easy on the biscuits. They've to last us for God knows how long. Nothing really seems clear to me. All I know is that we're here, the 2 of us. I don't know where we're going, or when we'll even get there. All I know is we're here, still, alive and breathing. Okay, so again, you've seen again, that's a very well constructed narrative paragraph where you're seeing that I'm using the world around us. You know, Aldi shopping bags, wrinkled Aldi shopping bags, the bottles of water, the digestive biscuits, you know what I mean? These are all just things that the examiner will know. The examiner has been to a supermarket. The examiner has drank a bottle of water, you know? So don't be afraid to go with what you know. It's not about showing the world through rose-tinted glasses. It's about reading, writing, and recording and seeing the world as it truly and really is, okay? So the personal essay. You will get a question and have to personally reflect on it in your response, okay? There are different ways to approach this type of question, but whatever you do, you must ensure that it is taken from a personal point of view. Okay, so you must ensure that you are dealing with this from a personal point of view. You are explaining and describing something from your own memory. You're going into detail about how it impacted and formed, it influenced, it shaped you, etc. Okay, so the personal essay, guys, it's another one of those kind of banker questions. As I said at the start, it's another question that kind of like it's more than likely going to come up on the paper, and even stronger that it is going to come up on the paper. Okay, like I said, you can trust me on this. This will appear on your leaving certificate paper. So as I said there, question, personally reflect, different ways to approach, different point of view you can take. It just has to be personal. You're explaining and describing something from your own memory. You're going into detail about how it impacted, it formed, it influenced, it shaped you. Another way of saying this, if you have a bit of paper there, write down the personal essay. It's an extended reflection. Okay, it's an extended reflection. So let's have a look there together. So correct approach for the style and tone of a personal essay. So do not go into the style of narrative. Okay, that's really, really important, guys. Do not go into the style of the narrative. Anecdotes are fine, but this is not a story you're telling. You yourself are the story. Okay, you yourself are the story. You're not being asked to create a story. You are the center of this story. So style and tone should be more informal. So it's your own sense of self. Okay, it's your own personality should come through. And that's that idea. When reading this, the examiner should get a sense, this is the type of person that the student is. Okay, so be genuine, have that kind of sense of genuineness and that passionate in the way you come across to readers. So be authentic. Okay, be authentic, be genuine. Be descriptive. So convey a sense of both feeling and atmosphere that is intimate, but it's almost confessional. You're letting the examiner in. You're letting down your kind of barriers. You're giving the examiner that kind of vibe of what you're like as a person. Does that make sense? There should be a real demonstration here, though, of reflection. And that's what the examiner is going to be looking for. That's what the examiner is going to be asking themselves in their head. Is this student demonstrating a real reflective ability or capacity for reflection? Okay, so there needs to be that sense of growth. So there should be a real demonstration of reflection and growth. What is that? What is it that you learn? How have you grown or developed based on the experience you have written about, and what is being gained? Okay. So personal essays. So these are from recent exam paper titles. Okay. So from 2020 and 2019, and these are the 2 options. These are the 4 options, 2 and 2. Write a personal essay in which you reflect on what you are most proud of in your life. Write a personal essay in which you celebrate friendship and reflect on how you have been influenced by the unique and diverse personalities of your friends. Write a personal essay in which you reflect on what feeds your imagination. Write a personal essay in which you reflect on the significant places that have helped define you as a person. And this is just a real kind of strategic or practical note here, guys. When you are revising, when you are studying, of course, use examrevision.ie. But equally, go to those past exam paper questions. And also, if you go onto our website, you will see that we've broken down some of these for you. We've looked at what do you have to do. Okay, so today's session is really just kind of a taster, because you could spend a long time in the composing section. But be familiar with past exam paper questions. I would say don't go beyond kind of 5 or 6 years. If you don't bother going back to kind of 2003 exam papers, okay, stick with the more recent ones. They are the best and most effective form of study, particularly at this late stage of the year. Okay. Okie dokie. So I have an intro here to a personal essay from one of the previous years. I think it's the what year is it? It is the 2020 paper, so the most recent one, and an intro sample. So it's just giving you a hint or a bit of a flavor of the kind of the style, the tone, the approach that you might take for it, okay? So write a personal essay in which you celebrate friendship and reflect on how you have been influenced by the unique and diverse personalities of your friends. So again, remember, you can be a little bit informal here. You can be a little bit cheeky. You can be, do you know what I mean? Give a sense of the person behind the essay if you are going with the personal essay, okay? Again, personal. So here's a sample. I'm not one to believe in corny sayings, but the one that I think I've always been able to understand is your friends are like a family you can choose. That's true. I've always been attracted to weirdos and oddballs. My friends are like that. My friends are the most wonderful and the most wonderfully weird and odd family you could ever hope to have. They may not be the smartest or the most popular, but really that stuff doesn't matter to me. They are my friends. They guide me, empower me, celebrate me, and love me. They are unique, and to me, they are perfect. So does it sound a little bit corny? Absolutely. But don't be afraid to go that kind of a little, like you are laying it on thick when you are talking in the personal essay as well, okay? And again, don't be afraid to use kind of tongue-in-cheek kind of phrasing as well. Just don't be obnoxious. There's a line there, but I'm sure you know that yourself, okay? So once you have that sense of genuine reflection, okay? Speech writing then. So the speech is a requirement on you to engage with the genres of persuasion and or argument. So depending on the type of speech you have been asked to write. So there's two types, as I said there's the argumentative speech, and then there's the more kind of the address speech. So the argumentative, write a speech for or against the motion, or write a speech in favor of the motion, or you know what I mean, or write a speech supporting the following statement. Whereas the more address style speech, you are the president of Ireland and you are giving your inauguration address. You are speaking at an international youth forum. Write the text of an opening address. Do you know what I mean? So there's two different types. We got a question in there as well. So someone that's kind of their speeches are in a H2 bracket, and they're kind of like, how can I punch up that little bit further? So what I would say to that is, first of all, I don't think, and again, this is coming from someone I've marked the state exams, the difference between a candidate that is at H2, that's 80 to 90%, and the difference between a candidate who's achieving a H1, that's 90 to 100%. You know the same content. You know the same knowledge. You were able to demonstrate the same knowledge. Content isn't the issue. Style. Okay, that's what sets apart a H2 and a H1 candidate. Very little difference in knowledge. You both know King Lear, you both know Seamus Heaney's poetry, you both know the 5 language genres, etc. But like I said, it's about style. So your main aim is to clearly and powerfully communicate a point of view either chosen by you or asked of you. So for example, the classic, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is, today I'm going to speak in favor of the motion. All right, how can you make that a little bit more interesting, a little bit more kind of engaging? Okay, and this is what a H1 candidate would do, So don't be afraid to start with silence. Don't be afraid to kind of pause. Don't be afraid to actually put them in it. Okay, don't be afraid to use a statistic or use a quotation, you know? So for example, if it's a speech on the overuse of smartphones with young people, so you could start with 75%. Okay, that is the number of people under the age of 18 who say they are addicted to their smartphone, whatever it might be. So you can engage the audience without simply saying, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, my name is today. Do you know what I mean? It's your speech. Another thing I would say is have a look at speeches online. So have a look at, you can't go wrong with someone like Barack Obama, Oprah Winfrey, Greta Thunberg, like well-known, very adept public speakers. What did they do? How did they do their speech? So the rule of three, etc. And it's something I'm going to talk about in a couple of minutes. So like I said, know the type of speech, an address or a debate. So the more classic debate style speech where you dismantle an opposing viewpoint to your own will take on a very clear, argumentative and passionate approach. So you're going to be writing there in the language of argument. Okay. Is it more in the form of you delivering a talk though? Okay. So you can take a more relaxed approach here. You're blending different elements of language together. So you can be using stuff like persuasion, but you can also be using stuff like information. Okay, so it depends. Effective communication, and this is where now, this is kind of the bread and butter of speech writing. You need to be able to communicate effectively. So connect with your audience. Remember, this is meant to be a piece of work that is to be spoken. So an awareness and appreciation of audience. So an awareness of register as well. So the tone and style in which you deliver the speech will prove an understanding of, as the candidate, do you understand audiences or the type of audience you have? So for example, if you're giving a speech to the United Nations or you're giving a speech to your class at the graduation, do you know what I mean? The stone and the type and the approach and the tone is going to be different. Okay, so grab the attention as soon as you can. So be powerful, be sophisticated in the way in which you want to approach this speech. So sincere and genuine rather than that kind of artificial robotic. So the way I would do this, guys, is actually think, if you were to give this speech, what would you like to say in it? So forget, I know it's very difficult to do, it's easier said than done, but forget for a couple of minutes that you're writing this speech in an exam setting. Imagine you were invited to talk at the United Nations. What would you say? But not just what would you say, but how would you say it? Because with speech writing, and particularly with Leaving Certificate speech writing, it's the how is important, the what and the how, okay? The two of them together. What is the candidate saying? But very interestingly, perhaps even more interestingly, how are they saying it? Okay. So convince your audience. Okay. You need to get your audience on your side. So be logical. Okay. And ensure that each of your points is made in a way that it's clearly defined and then demonstrates an informed point of view throughout. Okay. So convince your audience. Like I said, you need to get them on side. You need to be someone that sounds like you can be trusted. So ensure to use all the regular conventions of the speech and the genre. So the use of, for example, the I and the we pronoun. So I know that you understand me. We're all in this together. I'm just like you. We're in this together. Do you know what I mean? So it's that kind of the continual use of the I and the we pronoun, rhetorical questions, facts, figures, statistics, anecdotes, quotes, short, snappy, soundbite sentences. So repetition. So for example, yes, we can. Make America great again. They stay in your mind. They latch themselves to your ear. Okay. So remember, be snappy. Have those mixture of short and long sentences. This isn't an essay. So, okay, it should read and flow in a way that's fresh and in a way that's engaging. Okay. So connect with your audience. So what I have here is a brilliant quotation. It's just from a speech. If you Google Rita Pearson, you'll see it, but I'm going to go straight into it, okay? I have spent my entire life either at the schoolhouse, on the way to the schoolhouse, or talking about what happens in the schoolhouse. Both my parents were educators. My maternal grandparents were educators. And for the past 40 years, I've done the same thing. And so, needless to say, over those years, I've had a chance to look at education reform from a lot of perspectives. Some of those reforms have been good, some of them have been not so good. And we know why kids drop out. We know why kids don't learn. It's either poverty, low attendance, negative peer influence. We know why. But one of the things that we never discuss, or we rarely discuss, is the value and importance of human connection, relationships. And that's how Rita Pearson began that speech that she was giving I think it was Houston in Texas in 2013. So what does she say in it? Do you know what I mean? What in that speech makes you sit up and kind of like, oh, this woman sounds like someone I could talk to. She sounds like someone that I could agree with. So I have spent my entire life. We know why. We rarely discuss. So you're like, look, let's just cut the BS. This is the story. This is what I'm going to talk about. This is the viewpoint in which I'm taking it. You know what I mean? So that's a good example of authentic, sincere, genuine attempts at communication and connecting and conveying a sense to your audience. Okay? So the features and the content of a speech, something very practical that you can take away if you're going to look at the speech writing. A forest. Okay? All your speeches, regardless, so like the SCPN formula for short stories, a forest, alliteration, facts, opinions, rhetorical questions and repetition, emotive language, statistics, and the rule of three. So alliteration, sure you know what that is, you would have done it in poetry. Facts, you're going to, so again, they don't have to be real facts, by the way, but you're blending facts and opinion. Rhetorical questions, you're kind of like, you're appealing to that sense of the audience's kind of logic. Emotive language, so again, don't be afraid to lay it on thick. Use words like atrocious, disgusting, okay, ecstatic, whatever it might be. Statistics, again, similar to facts. The rule of three. So again, Joe Biden is a very good example. He always uses the rule of three in his speeches, for example. So look, an example would be Joe Biden, he's giving a speech to whatever. I believe we have the right to live in an America that is free, that is just, that is decent. So the rule of three, I believe in 1, 2, 3, boom, boom, boom. Okay, so try and give 3 adjectives that you can use when you're talking about a speech. Okay, so the basic structure and form for a speech. So look, if you don't want to use a forest, this is basically what you need to be looking at. Okay, all students, regardless of ability, if you're doing higher level, the examiner is going to be looking for, state what you're talking about. Okay, so respond to the question. State your point of view. Which one are you going to take? Explain why you think it right or why you think it's important. Give evidence or data to support, to back up that point. Conclude by reinforcing your point. Where are you going to go from there? Do you know what I mean? So what next? Okay then, guys. So again, if you have got any questions, please do feel free to DM our Instagram page, and I will be more than happy to get back to you. I will get back to you, I promise. So do feel free. We did get one other question there, kind of, I think it was, if you don't score kind of 80, 90, if you don't get really high marks in your composing section overall, does that mean your chance of getting a H1 is gone? The answer to that is no, not necessarily, but I would say logically, practically, like common sense, because there are so many marks, or sorry, because the percentage is even more increasing this year, like it's 37%, you need to be scoring at least 75 to kind of give yourself the wiggle room and the flexibility. So it's not like it's impossible to get the H1, but it's more difficult to get the H1. All right, but at least if you're scoring very highly in your composing section, it gives you that wiggle room. It gives you that flexibility with, say, your poetry essay, your single text essay, your comparative essay, whatever it might be. Okay, so practical answer to the question again, no, not necessarily, but it means you would have to really kind of be scoring very well in the other sections of the paper, papers 1 and 2. Okay, and like I said, guys, any questions, do please feel free, throw them on our Instagram, and I will, like I said, I promise you will get a response to them. Okay, so look, thank you so much. And again, my sincere apologies for the disruption with the YouTube live stream. It's an unavoidable technical issue. But like I said, examrevision.ie, give us a Google. Hopefully you're already a customer. Feel free to give us a Google. We have so much more content, video tutorials, notes, quizzes, etc. And again, not just in English, full study packs in English, by the way, lots of stuff, but you have got other stuff as well. So for example, as you can see there in the slides, we have other Saturday sessions coming up. So the 8th of May, so next week we have a chemistry session. The week after we have an economics session. The week after that, there's another chemistry session, and then I'll be back for the last week of this academic year for another English session on the 29th of May. Okay, so like I said, once again, sincere apologies. Hope everyone is going to do well though, and that's been of some help for you. Thank you very much.